I'm Masa Prastalo. I work in the partnerships team at Adyen, and we've taken quite a few merchants kind of from manufacturer stage to direct to consumer, and they've had a lot of success, and we attribute a lot of that success to their use of a payment strategy as more of a tool for growth rather than just a commodity. So how to have D2C success through payments from me today. The changing merchant and going direct to consumer, and obviously we've seen that the growth of e-commerce, especially kind of during COVID times, just soar. And our friends at Adobe have given us a statistic that 70% there's been a 77% increase on e-commerce year on year. So as you can imagine, there's a huge opportunity there. And when you are moving from to D2C, what you're doing is that you're able to take better control of your offering. You're able to create your customer journey better. You're able to keep control, because when you're not D2C and you're selling into retailers or you're selling B2B, the message can become quite diluted. And as we all know, customer engagement is the new customer service. And how do you attract your customers and then retain them and engage them? A lot of people are shopping with brands that they identify with, that they have some kind of relationship with. And with so much competition in the market, it's really important that you are keeping your customers engaged. And that leads us to data being the new currency. So collecting data around your customer, understanding what they need from you, feeds into that engagement piece and allows you to retain your customers and sell more product, which is fundamentally what we all want. So as I mentioned, we have quite a lot of experience taking customers D2C from a big retailer such as Nike, for example, that was previously selling into retailers and then decided to take ownership of their customer journeys and not just get part of the story as they were getting when they were previously just selling into retailers. We also did the same for Brompton. So Brompton is a really nice kind of, we took them on as a mid-market merchant. They had manufacturing down to perfection, and then the customer journey would be that a customer would design their bike online, and then they would have to go to a local retailer in order to collect and pay for that bike. So Brompton didn't have visibility of who was buying from them. They didn't really understand that their customer, they were losing really valuable insights. So they came to us and said, we want to go D2C and we need a robust payment solution in order for us to do that, because D2C payments is a bit more complicated. There's a lot more that customers are asking. Whereas, selling to retailers or B2B is mainly on account or via bank transfer. Whereas when it comes to selling to the consumer, there's a whole host of other payment methods and things that you need to consider because you're selling to an individual. So I have a case study that talks about the Brompton journey that I will share with Simon, that he can send out to you all after this, because it really is a fabulous story about a manufacturer going D2C and then becoming a big global company. So finding the right partners is really important, from who's going to build your Magento store to who's going to provide your payments. And really ask yourselves what your partners should be providing for you, what your PSP, for example, should be providing for you. Is your PSP, a leader in the market that is moving and changing with how the market is moving and changing? The landscape is changing so quickly. If you're working with some of the legacy providers that simply don't have the technology or the team dedicated to development, it's going to be very difficult. Are you using the right e-commerce platform, for example, for your needs? Are you working with the correct partners? And obviously, I know Pushan do a fantastic job of advising merchants on which partners are best for each thing. But it really is important that you have that robust infrastructure of tech partners that are going to facilitate your journey to D2C. I forgot to make the thing move. There you go. That was a video. They're all talking about how partnership is great. And changing the way you view payments. So payments has previously been viewed very much as a commodity, and it's been something that you kind of like tag on at the end, and whether you can get it for the cheapest price, and it's just kind of a necessary evil, when in reality actually payments can be a really strategic tool. And the reason perhaps that it's previously been viewed as a commodity is the fact that the legacy providers haven't been able to do anything other than process payments. So when you change the way you view payments, you open up a whole nother world of all the different payment methods, for example, that are available, or the data that you can capture from payments that perhaps previously was being lost. If you think about your journey to checkout and all of the time and effort that you put into getting your customer to the point where they want to buy, and then all of a sudden their card is declined, or your payments are down, or for whatever reason you lose that customer in that moment that you've worked so hard to get them to. So really start thinking about payments as being just another extension of that customer journey, and customers are becoming increasingly demanding in terms of how they want that journey to be completed. So I've mentioned it, local payment methods, and this is a huge thing that's ever increasing. And I would say probably in the UK, the first kind of payment method that caused a drastic shift was Klarna. And it was the first time that, something different was happening at checkout. And, it wasn't just a card-based payment, but it was a buy now, pay later option. And that's why we've seen so many merchants adopt it, because customers have responded very well to that payment method. And, Klarna is just one of many. Adyen has over 300 payment methods already integrated into our platform. So you have your local payment methods, for example, Ideal in the Netherlands, where 80% of online transactions are done through Ideal. So if you are a merchant looking to sell into the Netherlands and you don't offer Ideal, chances are you're not going to sell very much. Also, if you're wanting to attract the Chinese consumer, whether you're selling in China or wanting to attract custom from the diaspora, you need to offer the Chinese payment methods, Alipay, WeChat Pay, and we're talking about billions of users using these payment methods. And yet, somebody launches in China, they don't know the market, they don't understand that they need to implement these payment methods, and all of that time, money, and effort goes to waste. And then we're also seeing an increase in the kind of global payment methods. So your Apple Pay, your Google Pay, your Amazon Pay. It's almost, if you're not offering these payment methods at this point, then it's kind of, you'll be left behind, and it's do or die. So working with a payment provider who is keeping up to date with all of these trends, who is adding all of these payment methods into their platform, that's so making them easily accessible to you and your customer, it's really important. We, for example, are able to then segmentify what's offered in which geography, and we do it based on the IP address. So say, for example, if your website is selling into the Netherlands, we will show Ideal only in the Netherlands and nowhere else. So payment methods are really interesting, and there are some really quirky ones in the world as well. I always have to mention Boleto in Brazil. Brazil is a very cash heavy culture. They don't really trust banks. So what they have is a boleto, and it's basically you have to print off a slip of paper after you make an online reservation. You then print off a slip of paper that has a code on it. You then take it to your local convenience store. You then give them that little piece of paper, and you give them cash. They give you another little piece of paper in return with a completion code on it. You then go back home, you get back to your computer, and you type your code in, and that's the transaction completed. And I think if I had to walk that much, I don't think I'd shop very much online, but there's lots of interesting ones. And really think about how you optimize your checkout. Again, this is something that your payment provider will be able to do for you. Everybody has that kind of Amazon envy about the one-click checkout and storing your card details so that you can use them again rather than having to enter them every time. Adyen actually operates the Uber checkout. So again, the last thing you think about when you're ordering an Uber is paying. You're thinking about, when's my Uber going to arrive? And again, it's about creating that frictionless customer experience that fits in well with the rest of your customer journey. If you have a really slick journey to check out, and then like this clunky thing where you have to enter your card details every time. The customer is getting a very fragmented approach, and there's a lot of friction there. We all know how much abandoned carts cost merchants. Fighting fraud. So fraudsters are getting really, really savvy. They're getting more intelligent. The more locks you put on your door, the more likely it is that you're going to have somebody break in. So really ask your payment service provider about what they do about fraud and what fraud tools they're using. Often PSPs will use a third party to do their fraud checks. We do have our own fraud tools, so ours is a lot easier, and it's industry leading. And really make sure that you're understanding how fraudsters are behaving and that you're keeping up with it. But at the same time, whilst you need to block fraudulent transactions, it's really important that you don't block legitimate ones. So when it comes to this year, obviously we have the implementation of 3DS2. We all remember 3DS1 as being such a pain in the bum about remembering your password and this, that, and the other, and really creating that friction in the customer journey. Whereas with 3DS2, for example, if we are your PSP, we use biometrics in order to complete the transaction, or codes that are texted to the customer so that they never actually have to leave your site. We did get a bit of a grace period last year when, you know, we got an extension of time. There's not going to be an extension anymore. Next year is going to be the year that, you know, everybody will have to be 3DS2 compliant. So it really is important to think about. I'll leave you with this quote. I think I've probably completed in record time, but it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. And that, I think, is the key. And if we've learned anything from this year, having, you know, an overview of the way merchants have performed on our platform, it's been those that have had the ability to be agile, to pivot, to change direction, to open a new channel if they needed to start selling into a new region if they needed to. They're the ones that have been the most successful, and they're the ones that have had really good tech partners, robust infrastructures, a really strategic way of looking at things from the kind of get-go, and that's allowed them, as I said, to make moves really quickly. So if you are looking to move D2C and you are changing the way that your business operates, it's really important that you're choosing the right tools to get the job done.